This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we're very fortunate tonight to have one of my smartest political guys in the state, my old longtime friend. I ain't gonna say old friend, although y'all, we're the same age. We're like a week's difference in age. I ain't gonna tell you which one of us is a week older, but anyway, John Rice from Opelika, born and raised in Opelika. He and I went to the legislature as young boys. We were 30 years old. We were some of the youngest folks in the House. We sat close to each other and became friends, and then he went on to the state senate, and he's been a businessman over in Opelika for years and years in the real estate business, and he knows Opelika, but he also knows Alabama politics. And folks, it's getting into political season, so we got one of the best political years ahead of us. John and I have been around a long time. We've seen a lot of races. George Wallace was governor our first term and his last term, but I'm telling you, we got the best political year we've ever seen in your life, and we'll keep you posted on it. And John will come on and tell you about his views on it. But folks, we got an open governor's race. We got an open lieutenant governor's race. We got an open attorney general's race. We got an open state treasurer's race. We got an open agriculture commissioner race. We got 105 members of the House of Representatives open. We got 35 state senate seats. We got 3 Supreme Court judges, and we got one of them as Chief Justice. I'm forgetting something somebody told me the other day when I wrote that. We got all the probate judges open. Is that right?
We don't have them all, but we have sheriffs.
All 6, 7 sheriffs, that's right. Well, John, I didn't mean to take up that much time, but we're glad to have you on the show.
Well, I'm glad to be here because I sure enjoy watching you and your guest.
Thank you.
It's good.
Well, it's a good studio here. We get a good guest here in Montgomery. It's not far from Opelika. You can come over and be on us more often. John, let's talk to him a little bit about our old-timey stuff. John and I were fresh. See, John don't wear socks. I don't know what that's all about, but he has a legend of not doing that. As erudite a gentleman as is, he doesn't wear socks, but is there any kind of legend to that? Are you legendary for not doing it? Is there any reason for you don't do that?
Well, when I don't want to talk politics, I'll talk about socks.
All right, let's do that. John, hey, what about when we were freshmen? Tell me your best memories our freshman year. We were 30-year-old boys, freshmen. Wallace was his last term. People don't know who Wallace, bless his heart, had been governor all my life, and he would tell me that. He said, Steve, I've been governor all your life, hadn't I? I said, yeah. And then, but people don't know this, but poor old fellow had been shot so many times in that assassination attempt that just in order to stay from being, nowhere, being in pain all the time, he had to take pain pills. So he'd have good days and bad days. Remember you go out and see him, you wouldn't know where you were half the time, would he?
That was stressful for all of us that loved him, to see a man in that much pain trying to lead his state and to do the good things he knew needed to be done.
He did a good job, given, of course, he'd been governor so many times that one day I was down there and he says, because he remembered when I was a page, and he says, Steve, remember you were a page boy, yeah. Steve, how old are you now? I said, I'm 31 years old. I'm your representative, I'm not a page anymore. He said, I've been governor all your life. I said, yeah, I guess you'll be governor as long as I live. Ain't nobody ever going to be governor but you.
Well,
Tell me one of the funniest things you remember about it.
Well, that whole group, though, that we came in with, there were a lot of us from across the state, a lot of new House members. I think it was 30, maybe 32.
Was it that many?
It was a ton of us. And, some of us that came in there thought we were going to really be able to make the state a better place. I think we got somewhat dismayed knowing how broke the state was, and that we spent too much time on those matters. And when you don't serve on the money committees, it's hard to spend your time wisely where you think you can be productive. So we got off on other things. Governor Wallace that year asked me to serve on a committee to study the rising cost of health care. So I spent the summer of '83. That same summer we were disbanded as an illegal body
That's right. We all had to run again.
Yeah.
Did you have to run? Did you have opposition?
No. No.
I didn't either. I didn't have opposition, but everybody else had to run again.
Yeah, there's a lot of folks that were out there having to go again. And but anyway, I spent that summer on that committee, and I'll tell you what, when we were done and we got through, and we had so many struggles trying to get our pharmacists and nursing homes paid with Medicaid money we didn't have. It was a very stressful year for all of us trying to get that done, and we finally got most of it worked out. But anyway, Governor Wallace sat down with me and in his office, and his window was open because they, you know, it was needed a little air breeze, and there was a cigar.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, "John," he said, "Medicaid is a black hole that cannot be filled. We've got to figure it out." Steve, that was in 1983.
He knew it then.
Yes. And so here we are 34 years later, we're in the same position. There's never enough money to go around. The match is very important to a lot of people, and the healthcare delivery system is too. But it's a big question that is very, very difficult to answer. But he knew back then that we were headed into a brick wall with the budgets. He said it's just growing, and it's a black hole you cannot fill.
And you know something too, you know, history repeats itself. During that term, you and I were there, that first term, our first term in legislature, in Wallace's last term, we had to create new prisons then. Remember he put all his prisons in Barber and Bullock County?
Clow.
Yeah, he said, they did a commission, said, well, the commission came back and said we ought to put the prisons near the metropolitan areas. That's where the prisoners come from, you know. Wallace says, well, that's a good commission, looks pretty good, but I think we're probably going to put those prisons in Barber County if you don't mind. Remember that?
Yeah, I loved him. But he used to tell me something else. And of course, he told me this before I ever got in the legislature. He said, "John, we have to take care of the people down here because big mules in Birmingham take care of themselves." And that hadn't changed. That's politics in Alabama.
Big mules and big planters too now. The big farmers were in there with them in that old timey cliché that old Big Jim beat.
Yeah,
46.
well, he did.
Big Jim
Yeah.
beat him. From 1901 to 46, we had real rich men governor. It was like a country club thing. They get in the boardroom up in Birmingham and U.S. Steel and the big banks.
Pick them out.
They said, "This is going to be our governor." Y'all had something over in your area, you know,
Yeah.
rich folks governor. Who was that? Some of those rich governors over there in Lee County.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
Fobb.
Sanford was Sanford.
Yeah, oh, yes, Judge Sanford was.
He was a governor.
Yeah.
B.B. Coleman was a governor.
Yeah.
Richest man that we ever had in Pike County was our only governor, Charles Henderson. He was richest man in the state.
And they still got a school named after him.
Well, he gave the money for it. He should have named. Every school in our county was made out of his money. We even had to pay for schools in my county. He was so rich, he left our county money for schools. So, but that's the kind of governors we had. But Big Jim and Wallace beat
The establishment.
beat the big mules and big planters.
Well, you know, and speaking of that, over the last couple of election cycles, of course, I interview people that are interested in running for office, and then I help them if I think that they're people that think like I think, and that is that small government is responsible government, and I also believe that we need to support public schools, but control the spending, and make it responsible spending. And when I interview people, it doesn't take me that long to figure out if it's somebody that I would like to help, you know. And
But they might lie to you about how they feel and everything, but you can sense it though.
Oh, I vet them a lot further than that. I start calling, and I spend some time in the counties, and but when I finally get to the guy's living room or the lady's living room and sit down and talk with them, I can find out pretty quick if they're going to be the kind of candidate that's easy to work with, and then if we can get them elected, they're going to support those basic concepts of small and responsible government, and that we sure that our public schools are as efficient as they can be. And I'm very proud of three of the guys that I worked with before in 14, getting them elected. They got CPAC is a very big conservative gathering.
That's your group. CPAC.
Well, CPAC is a group that most of us that believe in small and responsible government, we look to for a lot of guidance. And the American Conservative Union Foundation rates each legislature throughout the country each year on 10, 12, 14 major pieces of legislation that would invade the Freedom Index. In other words, things that looks like government is bigger than it should be to help the individual or the small business. And those indexes are very important. And Alabama's, I think last year in 16, we had 14 pieces of legislation that the American Conservative Union rated as very powerful in the Freedom Index. And we had 5 members of the Alabama House of Representatives, where you and I served together, that were rated either A or B. And everybody else, Republican and Democrat, were rated C or worse. And so Alabama's conservative index figured against the rest of the nation, not good. But yet the population votes first, second, third, or fourth in the most conservative manners on national elections and on major policy issues. And so what this means is that much of the House and some of the Senate, but much of the House was voting those 2 years against the philosophy that most of the state felt was important. And that was during the 2 years of Mike Hubbard. And now that he's gone, I think we'll see the Freedom Index take a different turn in Alabama. I think that's very important. But 3 of those 5 people were Corey Harbison, is one of the guys that we helped, and he won his race in a runoff up in Cullman. And of course, Isaac Horton, who is my guy from Overland Valley, he was an A vote, and only, I mean, I can't ask for a person to do better than Isaac did. And his compatriot in the House, Tim Wadsworth, from over in Winston County. Smart man.
He sure
Very smart man. And so this is good because now that we see who is emerging, cream coming to the top kind of about being responsible, I feel good that if we could get the budgets out early and get them talked about and vetted, that we could the population could feel better about the Alabama legislature that it hasn't felt good about lately because of all the corruption.
Yeah.
And if we can get the budgets out and let people like you and me and other folks that have interest in budgets, I'm just kind of a budget guy, let us take a look at it and start asking questions before the last 15 minutes of the session, the way it's been, you know how it's been.
You know, it was terrible when I was there. We'd get the budget back in conference committee, and you wouldn't know what's in the budget.
No.
You know, you had to vote for a budget, you just didn't know what was in it, you know.
Yeah.
Back to Wadsworth, I like him a lot. You know, he did a lot of work with the Trump campaign, real unselfish. He never claimed any credit for it. Some of those folks who worked in Trump wanted to blow their own horn a lot, you know, but he really worked behind the scenes or did a lot for Trump. I saw him the other night at a Republican thing in Birmingham, and he told me, he says, I want to give you some information from one of your columns. He says Winston and Walker County and up in that area, Adderholt's district primarily, was the best district for Trump in the country. Did you know that?
Yeah, Tim told me that. I hadn't looked at it until I was talking with him on the phone one night about some other stuff, and well, it was about this American Conservative Union vote, and he told me that, and I said, well, that really speaks volumes about that area of the state.
It does.
And I think Tim is very representative of his people.
He said Winston County may have had the highest percentage there was.
I think he told me that Winston County was the #1 county for Trump in the country.
That's what he told me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write about it when he sends me information. But he is a good guy. But let's talk about the state races a little bit, John, because they probably all coming to you. You ain't got to tell everything you know, but in that governor's race, here we are sitting here, second quarter of basically of 17, and the election's June of 2018, because the Republican primary is election for everyone. We didn't talk about the U.S. Senate seat being open too. When you add that to it, which changes the whole complexion, let's start with that U.S. Senate thing. How do you analyze what's happening there? I mean, I told Luther when he got ready to do that, I said I wouldn't want the appointment if I wasn't investigating the governor. But with that thing, with him having done that, he just has a taint from Bentley's unpopularity in this thing. It looks like collusion, whether it is or not. Well, are you hearing that throughout the state?
Yeah, there's a lot of people across the state. I made three stops in North Alabama week before last, and since then I speak to civic clubs, whatever, and people, I don't bring it up, but people bring it up, and they're very, very upset about the governor still being the governor, and they want some more answers on the appointment process, and then the reappointment process, and then you've got another appointment after that appointment.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of distrust. There really is, and we're trying to rebuild that typically with people like Tim Wadsworth and Isaac and Corey and some of their compatriots. We're trying to build that trust back in the legislature that the corruption has been exposed, it's been talked about, and the ones that have been standing on the edge need to step back away from it, and let's get the process back. And I think the cleanest way to do that is get the budgets out in the open. Come on, let's get the budgets out here and let everybody see them.
Early.
Yeah, early. And matter of fact, I've kind of made that plea to some people to get that done. And I'm like you. I'm lucky that we've been around long enough to where I do get invited to come speak to different groups. And I say I stay active because I see the corruption and I don't like it. And so moving away from that race you were talking about with the Attorney General / U.S. Senate race, the governor's race is wide open.
Oh.
There is nobody standing up and saying, it's mine, I'm going to take it.
The wild card in this whole thing, John, is Roy Moore, because you've seen the same polls that show how popular he is after they moved him from the bench. So I think where he goes changes the complexion of every race. My assessment of it is, now I've seen polls by reputable people and people who are running for governor who come to see me and says, you can put me and 2 or 3 other people here in Roy Moore Beach, it's all without a runoff. But now I think that fades in that particular race. Now, this is my take.
In the governor's race?
Yeah. For some reason, people don't think of him as governor. Now, I may be wrong. This time may be different. But he's got 2 other options. He's got that Senate seat.
The U.S. Senate.
The U.S. Senate seat.
He's also got the AG office.
AG office. He's got those 2 options, which I think personally are better options for him politically. For some reason, he's lost twice for governor. And they may like him, but they don't equate him with governor.
You got to have strong organization and money committed. Okay?
And he's not good at that.
No, he's not. No, but he needs, if he's going to be governor, he's going to have a different organization this time than he's had in the past.
I'm of the opinion, my gut tells me he opts for one of those other 2 races, that he takes on Luther Strange in the Senate race. And if he does, he can beat Luther in that race.
Well, he would be, of course, I'm not exposing anything most of my friends don't know, but I'm a big Roy Moore fan.
Well, he's popular.
And I believe in the point of nullification. I believe that you need to have discourse outside of the courtroom. And when you disagree with a public law or any public statement, I still think you as a responsible U.S. citizen, Alabama comrade, that I need to listen to you as an individual. And if you and I decide that it's an unconstitutional thing that's going on, you and I need to become active toward that goal.
Do you agree with me about that? That race is a better race for him than the governor?
I don't know. I really haven't been talking to Roy or any of his folks lately, and so I don't know if he's got the ability to raise the money for Senate. It would be from outside the state probably. To run for governor, he would probably have to raise most of his money here in the state.
That's going to happen regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have national money behind Luther, and that's what Luther's betting on. Luther's betting on people are quick to forget or are ignorant.
Well, I asked Luther when he ran for lieutenant governor, and he beat George Jr. in the primary and then lost in the general. I asked him that year to run for attorney general instead. I thought it was a better place for him. So I'm not going to try to dissuade or persuade people where they're going to run. I will, if they tell me they're interested, I'll ask them a ton of questions and figure out if they fit with our groups, and if they do, then I'll help them. If they don't, I won't help them.
Analyze the people who you think are jockeying for governor. Now, as we speak, Twinkle Cavanaugh and John McMillan, Twinkle, the PSC president, John McMillan, are already saying they're going to run.
Well, the two things that changed the direction of both of those campaigns are named Roy and Tim.
Right. Tim James?
Absolutely.
See, he's been so out of the loop, I can't even find him. I mean, do you talk to him?
No, but I love Tim. And
Anybody ever talk to him?
Yeah, he's around. I mean, he's not that hard to find. I'm sure he's golfing or something. But he's just got a base of support, the people that love his family.
I've said that also, but he's been very, very evasive about showing his hand. He's got to say one way or the other pretty soon, don't you think?
No.
He don't think he has to.
No, I don't.
You think somebody can wait to the fall to get in that race?
Sure do.
Yes,
because how many people, if you know that Roy Moore and Tim James can both enter that race at any time with extremely high name ID. And now Roy's negatives may be a little bit higher than Tim's, but I think his positives may be higher. So those are offsets, and you try to balance those. They're both fine men.
Yeah.
You know, they're both fine men. And I mean, how much money and energy are you going to spend waiting on them to decide? That's a big question, Steve.
Here's the thing I've always...
And remember how Fobb won his first race.
Well, that's the point I'm fixing to make. I've always conjectured, and history reveals this to be true, that the governor's race is won by somebody who is a novice, outsider. I call him the Fobb James candidate, the guy who sells a barbell factory for $1 billion and wants to run for governor rather than play golf.
Yeah, and Guy Hunt was a total unknown.
Exactly. So you go back, every Big Jim had never won statewide, Bentley hadn't won statewide, Bob Riley hadn't won statewide. So going up the ladder is not the way to do it in Alabama politics. It's to come out of the woodwork, but you got to have your own money. You can't do it almost without any money unless some fluke happens like Hunt or something like that.
But you handicapping with Twinkle's name in the race. Twinkle's been around conservative movements for a long time.
Yeah.
And she's got a base of support.
And she believes being a female helps her. And it does in secondary races. I don't know if it does in the governor's race, but it does in secondary races. If you put Jane Doe and John Doe in a state treasurer's race, and neither one of them spend any money or do any advertising, and just ignore the whole campaign, Jane Doe will win.
Melba Till Allen.
Did you remember that? And it's true of judgeships too. You know, when Karl Rove came over here to run those judgeship campaigns, the one thing he left on people's mind, one caveat he left with the business community, he says, your best candidate is a female Republican who maybe has some experience, is the best candidate for the Supreme Court. And we've got several females on our Supreme Court, Kelly Wise, Lynn Stewart, you know, and so I don't know. She thinks, but now, let me tell you who Tommy Battle from Huntsville. You think he's in the race?
He might be in the race, but I don't think he will be the early factor. And I'll just say from the people that I work with all across the state, and I have little small groups everywhere that, you know, we get together and we vet candidates, and I help them make decisions. And I can get the voting records and tell them what's the real important vote, because a BIR vote sometimes is as important as a committee vote or an amendment vote or a final passage vote.
Right.
And you know that.
That's right.
And so that's where, you know, I don't play golf, so I spend my time studying this stuff. And that's where it's what I enjoy. So having that knowledge is something that I'm armed with, and which makes me helpful to small groups that are looking to find a candidate to maybe replace another candidate. Well, when you look at the statewide races, I ask as I go around, I'll be in Birmingham tonight when I leave here before I go back to Opelika, and I'll meet with two different groups. And I already know some questions that they're going to ask me, but I've got some questions for them. And it's going to be on some of this stuff that you've asked me and that we've thought about today. which will give me a better picture of what's going on around the state. It's a one-on-one poll is what it ends up being. And because I've got to ask a question that's not manipulated. I've got to ask a question and find out exactly what's on these people's minds. But I will tell you this, if Roy Moore's in the governor's race, everything changes.
It does. He's a wild card.
And if he's not in and Tim's in, everything changes. Because they're
Yeah.
just people that are sold with the James family. They're people that sold with the Moore name, and it's just very difficult. I mean, you got to have an awful lot of money. It's just how are you going to attack Tim James or Roy Moore? People already know them. You know, they know them very, very well.
Is your interest going to be primarily? We only got 2 minutes left. Is your interest going to be primarily legislative races or gubernatorial? Or where are you going to be?
I will be. We've picked out 10 seats in the House that I would like to see replaced.
Within the Republican primary.
Right.
Yeah.
And those we were pretty good last time. We got six of them last time. And but I've got 10 that we've got a working list.
Yeah.
And people are moving around on that list a little bit. And then yes, some of my groups will be involved in both the U.S. Senate, the AG's race, and the governor's race.
Those are the big races.
Those are the ones
that really count.
That the folks that I've been around, the Stop Common Core people, the small government thinkers, the gun toters.
Yeah.
That's the ones that we're most interested in, and we've got organizations there that can help.
That AG race is going to be a good one too. It's going to be an important race. Moore could wind up there. He's a wild card.
He is.
He's a wild card. John, our time's up. I hate it. It goes by in a hurry, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Let's do this again in about 3 or 4 months as time evolves and see how the candidates are stacking up, and we can talk more if you got time to.
Come the end of July, when all reports have been vetted and out there,
We'll know something.
You will be able to talk with real candidates then.
I think you're right. Exactly right. Folks, our guest tonight has been John Rice from Opelika, a longtime political veteran in the state, businessman over there. We thank you for taking time to be with us, and we thank you viewers for watching Alabama Politics, and hope you'll tune again next week. Thank y'all for watching.